Hello, everybody, and welcome back into JUCO Hard 90. It's been a while, but we are here and ready for some baseball coverage at the NJCAA level. I'm Zach McKinstry. That's Noah Sharp, and thanks for joining us, Noah. Good to see you again.
It's been a minute. I know on our show or on my show, I've been saying Zach's at Hutch. He's at Hutch, guys. He's living his life. He's got other things to do, but we're back. Basketball's over. March Madness is almost over, but everything's getting heated up, and this is the best time of the year. Yeah.
Basketball, winter championships out of the way. The last winter championship wrapped up on Tuesday with women's basketball. Baseball is here, getting ready for the spring and spring championships coming up. And we're getting into it in conference play. So let's go ahead and start by recapping what happened last week at the D1 NJCAA level. We'll start with the top team, Weatherford, getting knocked out of their top spot in the NJCAA rankings after Grayson and the Vikings take 2 games in a doubleheader at Grayson earlier this weekend. And a lot to point out from that game, a 3-2 victory in game 1 through 7 innings of work. How about the Campbell Camels commit Braden Risley, who put on a show? 7 innings of work, 12 punch-outs to 1 walk, allowing 2 earned runs. Small ball pushed across the go-ahead run in the 5th inning. 2 bunt singles and a sac fly got it done. And then Nick Sanders had 4 home runs in 5 games for the kid. So Grayson red hot in that opening game. That was down to the wire. Game 2 was a 12-11 11-inning matchup in which the Grayson Vikings walked it off. They were down 4-0 early, rallied back, got a bunch of homers, and then walked it off in a walk-off walk. So are the Vikings legit, and what are some names to look out for Grayson this year?
So the Vikings and Grayson, they've always been a power in Texas, right? They kind of hit a slump the last couple years with their old head coach going over to Blinn, but they seem to be getting things going. I know they had a really rough kind of start to the year, but they've really had probably 3 key guys. And one probably, like if you look at his record, really isn't going to tell you the whole story. So you got Caleb Hoover, who's hitting 300 with 11 home runs and 7 doubles. You've got Sloan Barrett, their second baseman, who's hitting 327, 17 RBIs and 7 doubles. But then you have their day one Saturday guy or Friday guy, game 1 guy all year. He's really faced McLennan, Blinn, Weatherford. He's faced all of them. Despite being 3-4, he does have a pretty solid 2.57 ERA, and he hasn't given up more than 3 runs since February. And I think that game he gave up 5, and in this game was earlier this week, game 1 of that series, and he gave up 3 there. So, I mean, there's a lot to like. There's still a lot to figure out in that conference as a whole. I can't remember off the top of my head, but they're right there at the top. I think McLennan's right behind them. I know Weatherford has Ranger this weekend. I'm not sure anyone else has, but it's getting to that part where games are going to mean a lot more. Those early conference season follies you might have had are going to really come into play. And I think it's next week or maybe it's the week after. I know Weatherford and McLennan finally are going to play. So that's one to be circled on the calendar. Despite McLennan's kind of fall, McLennan's still right there in the mix for that region.
Yeah, I know in the Region 5 North, it's been Grayson at the top. They're tied with 11-5, their conference record with Weatherford. So Grayson out to a good start in conference play. We'll see if it keeps up. Probably the most intriguing matchup of last week was Northwest Florida and Gulf Coast State. They played 4 games over the weekend and into the later stages of last week. Northwest Florida drops 3 of 4 of those games and now down 8 spots to 11 in the NJCAA ranking. Gulf Coast State looked really good. Third baseman Drew Prosek had 5 hits, 4 RBIs on the series. Bray touchstones, 5 RBIs, including a 390-foot bomb in that series, and then followed that up with a game earlier this week against Pensacola State and hit a 403-foot bomb. And then adding on to that, they've got some really good pitching with Jordan Martinez, who went a full 7 innings, only allowing 1 earned and picked up 5 strikeouts in Game 2. He leads the Florida Conference in wins. So this is a really good Commodores team that's 9-4 in conference play. You got Northwest Florida at 8-5 in conference and Chipola at 8-5 in conference. So thoughts on everything, how it's shaking out in that Florida Panhandle Conference?
So a debate in a lot of junior college circles is what's the toughest, what's the best conference in junior college baseball? When I first started doing this, I always said Region 5 because, that's where I'm from. And then it was, kind of Arizona. Well, year in and year out, the Panhandle is ridiculous. And with Gulf Coast finally kind of reaching that top tier 2, I mean, it was always Northwest Florida and Chipola. But Gulf Coast has really springboarded the last 2 or 3 years with their new head coach kind of to that national level. And then, I mean, when you look at this week's schedule, right? So Northwest Florida's playing Chipola, and I believe Northwest Florida took game 1 last night and by like 1 run. And then you have, where is it? I wrote it down. Okay, here we go. Gulf Coast has Pensacola State this week and then Tallahassee next week, who are the 2 teams at the bottom. Northwest Florida has Chipola this week, and I didn't look who they have, but I don't think it's Gulf Coast again or Chipola. So really right now, Gulf Coast is really in that driver's seat for the Panhandle, which is going to set them up for that regional tournament. I know even the other side of Florida, Indian River State, like a team you're not used to seeing at the top of the Region 5 standings, is leading the way there. So Florida really deep as a whole. I know we'll get into it, the Division 2 side, but Florida from top to bottom is always a really, really deep, really, really competitive state and region for, you know, this whole junior college world of things.
Yeah, and Gulf Coast State out to a good start. We'll keep things moving with Flodar and Florence-Darlington Tech. Got their second series against Gaston and the Rhinos. They're winners of 13 straight heading into that series. They dropped the first game, won the next 2. Same situation as that first series. Uncommitted sophomore Patrick Evans had himself an unbelievable 3-game set. 6 hits and 10 at-bats, 2 homers, 5 runs, 5 RBIs, and he's slashing 382, 452, and 636. They sit at 15-3 in conference, 29-8 overall. Where do you rank this Stinger squad?
So usually the years past, they've had really good pitching, solid hitting, right? This year's kind of seemed to be a mix of both things. It's been really cool to kind of see it. I was kind of early on. I can't remember. I know both. I liked Gaston. I like Flodar. I can't really remember which one I had as like, this is the team I think is going to win it. But when it comes down to it, Flodar's staff, they've been there, done that. Other than 23 when Gaston made that huge run. I mean, not huge, like no one saw it coming, but they kind of jumped on the scene their first year. They should have gone to Enid. They couldn't. Then they move up to Division 2, go to Grand Junction their first year at Division 1, and then it's been back and forth with those two. It's just kind of a Flodar. Their coaches have been there. They've done that. They know what to expect. The other half of the district isn't as tough. They're good, not as tough as the Carolinas, but Flodar right now seems to be in that driver's seat, which they're very comfortable in, and I don't see them putting up that gas or letting their foot off that gas anytime soon.
Yep, let's go ahead and move down to Division 2. Before we get into the matchups, biggest story out of Division 2 junior college baseball last week was Gaines Harrell at Enterprise State was hit head-on in a car accident that put him in a medically induced coma. He ended up breaking both of his legs, shattered his ankles, a broken knee, and has been in the hospital. He's slowly recovering. Was taken off the ventilator was the last update that we got, but there is a GoFundMe with a QR code below. You can scan that and donate what you can. And look out for Gaines Harrell, who he was a star for Enterprise State this season in his sophomore year and starting to get some 4-year offers and interest from coaches at the next level. So wishing the best for him and definitely a sad story.
Mm-hmm. It was one that when you first see it, you're kind of like, whoa, what's going on here? Then you kind of dig into it, and it's just, from what I've heard too, he was, again, one of the leaders in the clubhouse, with a great personality, like was a guy that just everyone kind of wanted to be around. I know from being on the athletic training side of things for so long, like that's going to be a long road ahead. And so just, thoughts and prayers for everyone over there.
Back to baseball, Division 2, the unanimous number 1, Pasco Hernando State. They battled number 11, South Florida State, for 3 games this weekend. And Pasco Hernando outscored them 27-7 in those 3 games. Really looked like the top team. Anthony Cole, the big name to watch out of that series, 6 for 10, 7 RBIs, 3 doubles, and a homer in a 3-game span. And then Braden Durfee, 7 for 11 in that series with 5 RBIs as well. And to add on to that, they have a D2 All-American from last year in Michael Savarese, who's been incredible again this year. And they've got 8 guys on their roster that are hitting over 300 on the season. So the hitting is there, the pitching has been there, and head coach and new athletic director Lyndon Coleman, he's got himself a squad.
They're one that I've heard a lot about them. They're solid, they're winning. Florida, again, like we said, it's a very, very deep conference, very, very deep state. So when they're playing midweek, usually they're playing a D1 school that's gonna, it's no easy task. I know Pasco Hernando, they've been kind of that head of the table there in Florida, especially the D2 ranks for a long time, especially now that The St. John Rivers drops down. South Florida drops down because it used to just be 2. I think one of those schools isn't even a school anymore. But they're in that driver's seat, and he knows how to get pitchers. I think, if I'm remembering right, he's committed to Pittsburgh, I'm pretty sure. So going up north, dude was actually I think it was our midseason player of the year or pitcher of the year. But yeah, they're killing it. I'm excited to see them keep killing it. And
yeah, so Pasco Hernando State looking pretty good, trying to make it back to Enid for the first time since their 3rd place finish back in 2019. So make sure to hashtag back the Cats on social media. Let's keep moving in Division 2 to Iowa Central, who had a really good weekend. Took down both Iowa Western and Indian Hills, 2 Division I opponents. No at-large bid to Enid last year for them, but a really competitive start to the Iowa Conference. Southeastern, the only undefeated team. Kirkwood and Iowa Central each with 2 losses in conference so far, but a solid weekend for the Tritons.
Yeah, I know Iowa Central likes to hit it. Des Moines area likes to hit it. I know is Iowa Western a little bit not what a lot of people thought this year. Yes, I think they're coming on strong, though. They'll be right there at the end. Again, another school that they just know how to win when it comes down to winning. But one big thing, I was talking with some coaches over there this week, and they were joking that they needed Ra. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's R-A-H. The guy's thrown like 30 innings and has not given up a run yet. It's ridiculous. Just committed to Kansas. Like, dude's been killing it. But they were joking, like, we just need Kirkwood to chill out for just a second, for just that one. But I think it's going to be really, really competitive down the stretch. And the last year's at-large bids were Region 23 and Region 11. There's a strong case you can make that again this year. Region or the West might have another debate for that one. So I think the at-large bid this year is going to be a lot of fun to see how it unfolds, with just how, or even in Florida, with how top-heavy Florida is, Oklahoma, Arizona, Iowa. Like, it's going to be a lot of fun to see down the stretch who's going to really get those 2 at-large bids. And again, adding the at-large bids, I think was a great thing. We need to add them to Junction, but that's a whole nother conversation. But yeah.
Well, before we do that, let's dive down to Division 3 and recap the Division 3 slate from last week. Busy week in the Division 3 NJCAA rankings. So RCSJ Gloucester followed up a loss against Mercer County with a 3-game sweep over Northampton, who was the number 5 in the NJCAA poll in the latest poll. Walk-off in Game 1. Gloucester trailed 4-0 at the 7th inning stretch, but RJ Mustaro pretty much did it himself. He had a home run and a double, including 3 runs batted in, and then a bases-loaded walk from Gabriel Reyes. Ended up winning that game in the bottom half of the 9th inning, and then 12 runs in each of the next 2 contests. Landon Edwards, 5 shutout innings, only allowing 1 hit and 6 strikeouts in the finale, but a big one for RCSJ Gloucester. And then elsewhere in D3, the Dallas schools battling. Eastfield came out on top in all 3 contests. And then Surrey, out of the rankings, going 0-4 since the last poll, swept by Caldwell Tech. So of those 3 big matchups, which one did you think was most important?
I think all of them obviously are important. Caldwell Tech was a team that didn't have too much on, but they've really come on strong. I think I have them in our top 10. Eastfield actually beat Richland, still swept them, still a big deal, but Dallas is going to be crazy. I think it's going to come down the stretch, as it always does. I've said that a lot this episode. Down the stretch, there's the title. But that's it for Dallas. And then Gloucester, I think it's going to be tough. The 1-2 this year in D3, I've had Niagara, other than a mistake on my part, as the number 1 team all year. Everyone else has had Gloucester. I mean, it's like a 1A and a 1B. Niagara has tons of pitching. Gloucester has the pitching and the hitting. It's going to, if those 2 meet multiple times, like, you could play a 7-game series and it might be a tie game the entire time. Like, both teams are very evenly stretched. I believe Niagara is still undefeated at this point. I think they were, last I saw, were 22-0. I mean, that's not why we're talking about them, but that region, I believe they're in the same region. Like, it's going to be just epic down the stretch to see who's going to come out on top over there.
Well, that wraps up the last week's recap. So plenty that happened last week and plenty that's coming up in next week. So when we come back, we've got our upcoming segment where we preview all of the matchups going into this weekend. So stay with us here on the NJCAA Network.
For the last 87 years, the NJCAA has provided academic and athletic opportunities to thousands of student athletes. However, several rules make it more challenging for 2-year college transfers. Recently, 16 national coaches associations, led by the National Fast Pitch Coaches Association, sent a request for change to NCAA leadership to make the rules the same for all transfers. We commend their leadership and stand together in support of same game, same rules.
Good morning.
Why so serious?
Great shot.
Car was 250. He got it.
Greenside bunker, land short. Trust your line.
There's plenty of green.
Breaks towards the water.
Lots of coaching today, huh?
We're one up.
When you strive to be the best, you need the right insights. Zurich has insurance solutions and risk strategies to help prepare your business for tomorrow.
We're back. Junior College Hard 90, and time to get into some of the exciting matchups over the weekend. We'll start with the Division I slate and plenty of big matchups on the way. Starting in Florida, receiving votes, Chipola takes on Northwest Florida State, who is down to 11 in the NJCAA rankings. Real Estate at the top of the Panhandle Conference at play. So going to be an exciting matchup between those two teams for sure. You've got elsewhere in Florida, number 6, Indian River State takes on receiving votes, State College of Florida. So busy in the South. And then Delgado against number 1 LSU Eunice. It's a road test for the top dog. The 36-1 LSU Eunice Bengals have been on a tear, but they'll go up against a tough and historically good Delgado side on the road for 3 games. And then the last big matchup at the Division I slate, John A. Logan and Lakeland, the top 2 teams in that respective conference. So 4 big matchups there. What are your takeaways there, Noah?
So Chipola and Northwest Florida, again, we kind of mentioned this earlier. Chipola, I think it went all 9 innings last night, lost by a run. So that's already going to shake stuff up. Those 2 schools do not like each other. It's always chippy. It's always close. Can't remember a time when either one of them blew each other away. Indian Rivers has been a school that no one usually thinks of, but they've been killing it. Their offense is ridiculous. State College of Florida. Fun fact, one of the new Dude Perfect videos is actually filmed on their baseball field. So I don't know when that one's being released. I know the softball one was, but the baseball one is getting released. I got privy to that information. It was kind of cool. Delgado and LSU Eunice. I think LSU Eunice, there's a lot of questions, right? Everyone's moving up or moving over to Division I. There's a lot of questions, but at the same time, there wasn't, because they're going to play, he's going to recruit the same guys. And Delgado has been historically that top team there. Nunez, they try to keep up. They seem to have fallen off. But with Delgado's series last week with Baton Rouge getting canned and it kind of making the standings look weird there. I mean, regardless, this was going to be a big series, but it's even bigger with those potential 3 games. So if Delgado can steal a game here, it's going to be big in like the long haul of the season. And then John A. Logan and Lakeland. Lakeland's not usually that team. And it's Lakeland Lakers. It's not the Lakeland other ones. I get those 2 mixed up all the time. One's 1 word, one's 2 words. The Division II one is 1 word. The Division I one is 2 words. Like, why? Come on, guys. But Lakeland's not that normal team you think of in that region. Usually it's Wabash and John A. But this year, Lakeland, I was really high on them to start the season and kind of said they were going to be that team to watch. And so far, it's panned out. Logan, I think they finally dropped 1 game to Southwestern Illinois, I believe, this past weekend. I think it was the Saturday game they dropped. But both are the top teams there. It's going to be, again, it's going to say a lot about where the conference standings are going to go when it comes to how they do their regional tournament. But I think that one for sure is one that I am actually covering. I'm doing a whole write-up on it. So go over and check that out. But I'm keen into that one. That's probably my biggest one, even though they're not the probably 2 teams you would normally think would be kind of the ones you would look at.
Yeah, and then the Florida action doesn't stop in Division I, D2. Number 1, Pasco Hernando taking on number 21, Lake Sumter State. And then elsewhere in the Division II slate, number 16, Pima will get a crack at number 3, South Mountain. So 2 big matchups at the Division II level as well.
And in Pima and South Mountain's case, I believe Pima lost both games earlier in the year to South Mountain at South Mountain, and now these games are at Pima. Or I might have that, whoever the road dog was, lost the games or won the game. I don't know. Another series that I'm writing up, but both of these 2 teams are the top 2 teams. I think I had both of them top 5 to start the season. And this year, I mean, they keep going. I think I have them flipped. I have Pima higher than South Mountain, but both teams are killing it. And fun fact, they use wood bats. I think I say this every time when we talk about Arizona, but both teams are putting up crazy offensive numbers, and they're with wood bats, which is not the normal thing at all. Another big one series this week. You got Enid and Tonk, kind of the same thing as Chipola, Northwest Florida, other than that their names are completely different with those Florida ones. These two schools, huge offenses, huge defenses, tons of defensive talent there. But that's one in Oklahoma that, with how their standings are, I believe they're top 2 there too. And that's going to be a lot of fun to see how those two, or all 3 of those, unfold.
And then the last big game that I was looking at this weekend, number 7 Brookdale for Division 3 and number 4 Northampton. That's a midweek game, and it'll be only a 1 game between those two sides, but it starts in about 30 minutes from when this is released on Thursday. Still going to be a really big-time matchup between 2 D3 teams, and we'll kind of figure out where each sits in the D3 rankings after that one.
Yeah, and another big one we kind of mentioned earlier, but the Brookhaven versus Eastfield. I think Eastfield's going to run away with it, but that's one. Brookhaven's kind of come on strong lately. They're scrappy, but usually it's those top 3 in Dallas. Brookhaven, Richland, and Eastfield are kind of those top 3 every single year in and year out. And yeah.
We'll make sure to check those games out this weekend. And when we come back, we've got our Hard 90. Noah Sharp tees off on everything JUCO baseball. So stay with us. We're back in a moment.
What makes a life a good one? Is it our adventures? Or the friends we find along the way? Is it the challenges we conquer together? Maybe it's the people's lives we touch every single day. So, what makes a life a good one? You'll have to figure that one out for yourself.
As the second largest intercollegiate athletic association in the country, the NJCAA serves not only a pivotal role in college athletics, but in higher education. The NJCAA Foundation aims to move the association forward through resources, grant programs, and other special initiatives. Your gift to the NJCAA Foundation will make a difference and create opportunities.
Welcome back in, Junior College Hard 90. Final segment of the show here in episode 5. Noah Sharp, 90 seconds to rant. It starts right now.
Okay, let's see if I can do this. I cut it close the last couple times, so let's see. I know we've mentioned them before, but Tonk is still on a wild tear. So offense, these are all national ranked team numbers. So right now they're first in runs, doubles, homers, RBIs, extra base hits, total bases, team average, team slugging. They're second in the country in hits and on base percentage. Their team ERA is 2.5, which is 4th in the country. And then their team whip is 1.13, which is 5th in the country, which those numbers are wild. So if you're playing bad teams, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. And then leading the way, Blade Carver, we've mentioned him a bunch, East Carolina commit. Dude's been killing it. But the 2 things that stick out to me is, yes, okay, he's leading the country, not just like Division II, like he's leading the entire country, regardless of level, division, whatever, in home runs with 17. He's also leading the country in triples with 6. So a catcher that can run. They have a huge matchup this weekend with NOC United. 2 last things. Okay, let's see if I can do this. Fisher Polydorov. Crazy situation at Midland or Weatherford like 2 weeks ago. It's just crazy. 9 knuckleballs and 10 pitches. It was wild. Hit a guy. Almost should have been a triple play. Wasn't a triple play. It was wild. And then Kankakee actually had a crazy wild pitch last night from their freshman closer, Joe Big Cat Catalano. Again, can't read names. Oh well, but ended up getting a huge diving play off a bunt to then double off a guy at first, gets a K the next batter, and then they score 2 in the bottom of the 8th or 7th or whatever it was to beat a really good Parkland team. So just crazy on all get out. And I definitely went over that time. I'm not even going to try to guess the time, but I definitely went over.
Not too far off. You're about 10, 15 seconds over, but well done. Definitely a busy week and a lot of action going on. That diving play was pretty impressive. We'll try and feature it in our JUCO Gyms, which is coming back on Friday. So that wraps up our show here. Thanks for tuning in. Happy to be back and happy to be out of the Winter Championships. On to baseball in spring the rest of the way through. So be sure to be tuning in every Thursday for Junior College Hard 90. That wraps us up. I'm Zach McKinstry. That's Noah Sharp, and we'll catch you next Thursday right here on the NJCAA YouTube.